So, a lot of people shoot a lot of nonsense because after I left that SEAL team in Korea, where we were involved in fence line shooting, a resulting loss of one Navy Lieutenant SEAL, there was a general showed up right after the shooting, wanted to know where his security was, and they pointed to the dead guy on the ground, and he appointed me security and said to move to the next point and do what he did, and I said, nope, I'm not doing what he did. And then we shot at him. I ordered him to shoot at him, and they said we couldn't shoot at him now. He got in the car was bulletproof, and we fired on the car, and that, I guess, part of the show that convinced the North Koreans that we weren't going to attack. And I wasn't going to go out there and be his bullet stopper. And they put us in charge of the Corps. There's a secret history of the Corps, and you don't read about it in books that you get on Amazon. You gotta wait 30 years before you hear it sometimes, and even then the government suppresses some things. But that's part of it. I left for Army Fort Bragg, and I went to Psyops to learn media production and to do counterintelligence. There is a big counterintelligence mission in Psyops, Army Psyops, because Army Psyops is they broadcast to the enemy through loudspeakers, television, and radio. And whenever you do that, a mole or a spy inside could be modifying equipment to tap out a message to the enemy. And they do that. They have ground-based assets, helicopter-based assets, and other airborne platforms, aka cargo planes, with broadcast equipment in them. Either loudspeaker, in case of the planes, it's high-frequency radios that can broadcast directly to the enemy. You don't want to tell the enemy where you are or what's coming after them, unless that's part of the PSYOP message. And that all has to be approved and planned and coordinated with ground force elements and other airborne elements that would be carpet bombing them or whatever. But so I went to Psyops from I'd been at Lowry and been in a PSYOP program, but it wasn't Army Psyops, it was SIOP, the Single Integrated Operational Plan, which it's a homonym, it's a homophone or whatever they call it. It sounds the same as Army Psyops, SOP and SOP, right? So they do that sometimes just to confuse people. And over in Army Psyops, they had a place called PDB, which is the PSYOP Dissemination Battalion. They had printers, a print company, and a media company. And media did media production. They had graphic artists, broadcast journalists, and they had translators and linguists and people that they would bring in from different commands around the world, I guess, to read scripts sometimes that the journalists had wrote and that the translator could translate and then read. And they'd find someone suitable to read a script and make a media product. And you have to make sure those people are not trying to hide a message in the media. You've all kind of probably seen those little videos where they did I guess it was at a drive-in or something way back in the 60s, and they put little secret messages, subliminal messages in something. Well, a subliminal message is one thing. Say it's ineffective, but a spy who puts a subliminal message in something is totally different. They're trying to transmit information that someone could detect, and it's just a secret message. It's a covert way of communicating. It has nothing to do with subliminal influence. It has to do with hiding something in plain sight that somebody who has graphic skills or something can detect and pull out. They put a little secret message in a movie, they put a little secret message in a broadcast. That's the kind of counterintelligence you do at Psyops. The other kind of counterintelligence you do there is The Psyops people work with the special forces, the SEALs, the recon, the infantry, the rangers. And you have to make sure they're suitable to do those kind of missions. Some of it is counter-narcotics, some of it is counter-terrorism, some of it's drug interdiction, whatever. But and some of it's with the DEA and other government agencies. And you have to make sure they're suitable. The way you do that sometimes is you have to use media products sometimes to upset them, and if they get too upset and they do the wrong thing, they're not suitable, right? They don't want to bust drug dealers, and you don't want them down there. If they don't report things you say when you talk about war crimes and stuff, and that's somebody who's not suitable. They're not going to be somebody who's responsible down there. You want everybody to be responsible. There's a head check for everybody. There's a suitability test. And there's counterintelligence on everybody who goes to South America for the drug war and to other parts of the world, Thailand, wherever. You have to see if they're suitable there. In Thailand, they have royalty. And the way you test for royalty is a little different, right? Because you can't say bad things about the Queen or the King or whatever. And that goes for England as well. If you're going to test a Marine security guard who's going to England, you might want to show them a picture of Princess Diana's pussy. And it's Photoshop, it's somebody else's legs and somebody else's pussy. It's not Diana's pussy. But I have a picture, and it's with Prince Charles and Diana. It looks like some Indian castle or something in India or something. It's a little garden in the background, and maybe Bangladesh, Nepal, India somewhere. And she's got her legs kicked up, and her panties are showing, and you know, it's her what do they call those things? Nylons. It's not all the bush and clitoris or whatever that you look at in Playboy, but there's a lot of media products like that. And if you want to be on Hillary Clinton's detail, it was the same way. You don't want people to laugh. You want people to go back to their CO and report it, or go down to counterintelligence and report it, and you follow them around and see how they respond. And then you have aggressors come up and asking questions, and they'll bring up their trip to England, and you'll laugh and tell them about the picture, and then you're not suitable, right? So there's a whole kind of background investigation involved with that. And there's other stuff going on at the same time. Eventually, you determine whether someone's suitable. A security clearance does not just involve other risk factors like arrests and drug use and past criminal activity and association. It can also involve things like suitability, and that's where the human resource in the government sector and the personnel boopers and people like that kind of intersect with the counterintelligence. Recruiters and counterintelligence work together to find Marines who are suitable for different MOSs. It starts in the recruiting office in the Corps, and then they pick one for you when you get to boot camp. Not everybody's suitable to stand at the door in the White House or Camp David, and not everyone's suitable for Marine 1. Some people would be a helicopter mechanic and they're good at it, but they're not going to be in that kind of environment. It's high profile. The eyes of the world are on you when you're in the White House or on the White House lawn. So, or at Andrews Air Force Base or something. There's a lot of people watching. People from other political parties, people from enemy spies and things like that. So you have to make sure that the people are the right people, that they have the right background and all that. So anyways, I went from SIOP at Lowry, and George Bush parachuted into Lowry while I was there, and we did a little mission with the Russians, and it's amazing what he could do. The power of the presidency is something that you wouldn't understand until you've seen it, but they have the power that David Copperfield has. And you've seen David Copperfield make a Statue of Liberty disappear or something like that. The president could do the same thing. It has all that power to convince somebody of something. It'll convince people that he's the president and nobody else can do the things he can do. It's even more convincing than Copperfield, because we were trying to convince the Russians of things, and they were pretty stunned at what we could do. you might have seen what Donald Trump did in Singapore. Kim Jong-un said that he was kind of stunned that it was like science fiction. And the president can kind of use holograms and illusions and things like that to really confuse somebody who thinks they have the upper hand. And Kim Jong-un doesn't have that kind of power because he doesn't have that kind of money to invest in that kind of tradecraft. The presidential tradecraft is better than anybody's in the world, and that's why they say it's the most powerful man in the world. It's not that we just have 3,000 nukes and a million-man army, or 400,000 in the Marines and the Navy and the Air Force. It's a million-man force, women, whatever. But that's something you have to consider. And there's in Psyop there was PDB, which is the President's Daily Brief when you work for the President, and it's the Psyop Dissemination Battalion in Army Psyops Group, 4th Group. So I worked in the PDB. I was assigned to headquarters. I did counterintelligence, and I learned media production from people from DINFOs, officers and sergeants mostly, and a few specialists. I learned about photography. I learned about photography, developing the film and everything in their lab, as well as taking the pictures and what they did on their different assignments. And I learned about other things as well.